Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council. Mayor, Skip Henderson. City Manager, Isaiah Hughley. Pops Barnes, District 1. Glenn Davis, District 2. Bruce Huff, District 3. Toya Tucker, District 4. Charmaine Crabb, District 5. Gary Allen, Mayor Pro-Tem and District 6. Mimi Woodson, District 7. Walker Garrett, District 8. Judy Thomas, Post 9 at-large Counselor. John House, Post 10 at-large Counselor. Sandra Davis, Clerk of Council. And City Attorney Clifton Fay. Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council.
Good morning and welcome to the December 15th City Council meeting. We're kind of like a band of gypsies here lately with this pandemic, but it shows how amazing the people that work for this government are. We've never skipped a beat, never skipped an opportunity to be able to allow our citizens to come engage with us during our City Council meetings. We have been meeting at the Civic Center because of some requirements of the courts and some needs from the courts. We're going to be relocating from there to where we are now, and now we want to thank Haley Tillery, Henderson Henderson Tillery. I have to throw the Henderson in there because it makes me look better by association. But we're thankful to her and her staff for providing us the space within our convention and trade and convention center. So we will begin today the way we begin all of our meetings, and that is by asking God's blessing on our proceedings. We're really excited to have Jimmy Elder, Pastor Jimmy Elder from First Baptist Church of Columbus here with us. And Jimmy, would you come forward and provide our thanks to God?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm honored to be a part of this. Good things happen in this room. Good things for the people of Columbus. Good things for the good of each individual. And I'm so grateful for each of you. Let's go to the Lord and ask His blessings on your deliberations for today. Lord, at a time of year when we celebrate from so many traditions in so many ways, it all boils down to one thing. We desire peace on earth. We desire good in the lives of other people. We desire from the depths of our hearts for people to be blessed. So the efforts of those who sit at these tables and those who sit behind them, those who are part of our city government, have at their heart doing good for those who have needs. I pray that you will guide every thought and every action. Give to them wisdom. Grant to them direction in what they should do. And as they do it, may you give to them the smile and the satisfaction of knowing that your grace is upon them and your peace comes in the good that is done. In your name we offer the prayer, and we're grateful for a community like this. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Jimmy, thank you, sir, and thank you for what you and your church have done in this community. For those, and I don't want to go through a litany of contributions to this community, but a couple significant occurrences here lately that you have been in the middle of, and the primary one that I want to mention is Mercer Medical School. I just want to make sure the folks of Columbus know that were it not for Pastor Jimmy Elder, we probably would not be seeing what may turn out to be the biggest and most impactful economic development in this community since TSIS. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your love of this community, and thank you for putting that love into action. Thank you. All right, if you would, please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, Thank you. All right, you've been provided the minutes from the December 8th council meeting. Are there any changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Motion approved from Councilor Tucker, second from Councilor House. Any edits, any discussions on any of those? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, the minutes are received. We do have before I give the COVID update, I want to mention we've got a resolution on the agenda to approve contributions for the MLK Day celebration. Even though we are doing things differently and dealing with some hurdles that we got to clear, we are not going to miss an opportunity to celebrate that event. We've seen that event grow and become a recognizable staple of this community, and we intend to continue to make it better every year. And we have been working with Rob from the Civic Center. Come on up, Rob. And trying to make this another unforgettable occurrence. So I'm going to turn it over to the director of our Civic Center right now and let him talk a little bit about the committee that he is chairing to make this a memorable event. Could you hit your light there, please, sir? Amen. There we go.
Good morning. Sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, Deputy City Managers, and everyone in attendance. So, obviously, this year, as we've seen some unprecedented events due to COVID-19, whether it's having the challenge of working from home, virtual learning, the driving elements that we've been able to do, everybody has made an adjustment in some form or fashion. But no matter what, one thing still remains. No matter how far we are away from each other, we're still connected. And so Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s commitment to inclusion of all backgrounds coming together, it's more alive now than ever before. So as we approach Dr. King's celebration, we're not letting the adversity stop the march. So on January 18th, we will be having a program that will be a digital and virtual program online. And you also have the ability to come to our drive-in theater that we have set up at the Columbus Civic Center. So the goal of this year's program will be focused on youth and their empowerment. We want to make sure that we are giving the youth all of the support and the commitment they need in order for them to continue to drive for social justice and equality. This is going to be a unique programming. It's going to be something that's new, but with everything, there's been a silver lining that we have seen with COVID and us being reactive to a lot of things that have surfaced. And so there's a lot of things that we are looking forward to that we can add to this program going in the future. So we have established a local group of artists to do musical tributes. We're going to have some cultural elements. So there's going to be a lot of unique new things to this program, but it still honors Dr. King and his traditions and the traditions of Dr. King. So we are honored and blessed that we will have Ambassador Andrew Young as our keynote speaker. We'll be going to Atlanta this week to pre-record Andrew Young as our keynote speaker. And so it's going to be exciting, it's going to be new, it's going to be different. But with this local Columbus community, everybody has come together from the committee and their support for the idea of doing something new, doing something out of the box, where we're still able to celebrate this tradition that's here in Columbus. So we're asking again on January 18th, Dr. King's birthday, we will have a celebration at the Civic Center. Now it will be drive-in and it will be socially distanced, and it's going to start at 6:30 p.m., but we'll also live stream it on our CCG networks as well as our YouTube channel. So more details to come. We'll have a trailer for the event. We've been working diligently for the last 6 weeks on the program. We did some pre-recording last night with the DLC choir at Riverside Theater, so very excited. We've done some recording at Ma Rainey's house. And the goal is to capture all of the special elements of Columbus and the city and embody that in Dr. King's celebration.
Rob, thank you. You know, this pandemic really has forced everybody to kind of find a new way to do things. And I think it says so much about this community and employees like Rob Landers and folks that have found new and innovative ways to have not just a substitute celebration, but have the same type or even bigger. Really excited about Andrew Young's comments. I've had a chance to see some of the snippets from some of the performances. They are incredible. So what I would challenge all of you to do, that as we move through this pandemic, when there are events in our community and you see the word virtual attached to them, tune in. They are really amazing performances. And this is going to be a year we'll never forget anyway. But to know that we push through and we continue to celebrate things that make this community great, our diversity, our inclusion, and things, kind of making a statement of where we want to be. I think this is an incredible opportunity, just an amazing function that we're going to be participating in. So thank you so much for your leadership and innovation, because you've had to think outside the box for a while now out there at the Civic Center. We appreciate the way you've done it.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride, but we're going to make the best of it. We've done drive-in graduations. We were able to do the Columbus State graduation this past Saturday, and it went extremely well. And tonight we'll be hosting Columbus Tech's drive-in graduation as well.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. We need a vote on the resolution so that we can accept those donations to be able to conduct. There's a motion from Councilor Tucker. Is there a second? Second from, who did I hear from over here? Councilor Garrett. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. All right, good. Thank you. Next, I'm going to call up our internal auditor to request authorization for a couple of transition and departmental audits. And we have had some changeover, so we'll have more of these transition audits coming to you in the first of the year. But right now, John is here to talk about two in particular. Hit it again for me, John. There we go.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, members of council, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney. It's my pleasure today to come forward to request authorization for 2 additional transition audits. Today we'll be looking at approving inspection and codes department and also municipal court, where there'll be a changeover in the future. Any questions?
Okay, is there a motion to approve those audits? Motion from Councilor Crabb, second from Mayor Pro-Tem. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, no? All right, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Quickly give you an update on our on the pandemic as it's impacting our community. We were doing exceptionally well below the rest of the cities our size in the state, and we still are outperforming many of the cities in the state of Georgia our size. But we have seen occur what we kind of anticipated occurring, and that was that the holiday season is sort of taking a toll on our numbers. We had a lot of folks forced inside and celebrating Thanksgiving, and we have seen a pretty good uptick in our numbers. Yesterday we had one of the lower positivity rates that we've had. We had 33 new cases yesterday. Our 7-day rolling average that you hear us talk about dropped a little because that was a little lower, so we're at about 55 on the rolling 7-day average. The threshold of 100 cases per 100,000 residents that we watch when it comes to having authority to require a face mask be utilized is 100. We are back up to 358, which is almost as high as we were back in the middle of August when we first began discussions about the mask mandates. Obviously, we're concerned about the mortality rate, and our mortality rate has risen, but very, very gradually. We're at 195 individuals from Muskogee County that have lost their lives. The hospitalization rate, we've talked about this back during the peak of the pandemic in the summertime. We continue to watch that because we think that's probably the most significant indicator of how we're doing as a community. As mentioned before, our hospitals are doing a great job. They have gotten extremely efficient and effective at treating the symptoms of COVID-19 and getting people feeling better enough to go on back to their homes to convalesce a little bit. So our hospitalization rate has stayed under 60. Right now we're at about I think we're at 53. And as long as we can keep it in that range, we're doing very well, because at the peak we were up close to 150 folks in the hospitals. And of course the danger there is anybody that has a non-COVID related medical issue, there's a shortage of rooms and there's a shortage of staff, and it just makes it tough on the people in our community. So we continue to ask you to do the same things that we've been asking you to do. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We're closer to the end than we are the beginning. So I ask you, through these holidays, please be mindful. Try to stay 6 feet away from individuals that you don't cohabitate with. If it's not an immediate family member, even if it's a family member that lives in another house, be smart. Use your mask if you can't stay 6 feet away. And make sure you continue to wash your hands, you sanitize. It was brought to our attention at our last meeting that we were not wiping down our podium, and you've noticed Nixon from the Civic Center has been there with his antiseptic bottle in hand after every person approaches that podium. So we thank that young lady for bringing that to our attention. I will tell you, everybody's talking about the vaccines. The Department of Public Health is sort of driving the vaccine distribution for the entire 16-county area that they serve. Piedmont is the region head for the hospitals in this area. So they have the refrigeration units in place. They are going to be assisting with that. We've offered to the health department, and they've accepted, so we're going to meet with our, just found out late yesterday. In fact, I haven't even told the city manager this because I got to get on his calendar and make sure he's there. But we're going to meet with our emergency management folks in our fire department, and with the health department, and with the hospitals, because we've offered the fire departments as a distribution means, since they're scattered geographically throughout the community, and it would make it easier for people to access. So we're working on trying to make sure that when the vaccine becomes available to the general public, that we have a well thought out plan on how to distribute it. So I do want to ask you all to continue to be vigilant, I know it's tough, we're all tired of it. I tell people all the time, nobody hates this mask worse than I do. My wife's getting used to it because she only puts on half her makeup now. No, bad joke, but anyway, Councilor Thomas.
Mr. Mayor, I saw a news article in the last day or so that the municipal court has closed because of the number of employees that had tested positive. Would you speak to that, and to other, if there are other departments or so forth, that the government center that has been impacted by this, and some of those kinds of things?
I'm going to turn it over to the city manager and let him give a briefing. But first I'll say that our government, we're not any different than a large industrial employer. We have a lot of folks coming to work. We interact with a lot of people. So the odds that we're going to have breakouts occasionally are pretty good. But this government, under the city manager and Deputy City Manager Goodwin, have done an outstanding job at making sure we catalog and we know who's been ill. We write up an incident report on every one of them, and we do that so that we can make sure if we're ever questioned later about the process we took, not just overall, but for each individual instance, we're able to pull that and reference it. So it's critical that if there is a positive case within the government, that they contact the HR director and or the city manager. The city manager, you want to hit your light and
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning. And I think the mayor has really outlined it. Obviously, with COVID, we are going to have positive cases within the city government. And we don't know where the contact came from, whether it was through a citizen coming in and interacting with our employees, or whether it was our employees out and about in the community with family members and made contact. But when we learn that there is a positive case in a city department, we have a process in place, as the mayor has outlined. And that process is that that department head elected official immediately should contact our HR department, make them aware of the contact, of the positive case, and explain what they know about that positive case. And so in every instance, when that elected official or department head follows that process, in every instance, we contact our Department of Public Health officials. We explain the positive case and what we know about that positive case, and we get direction from the health department, the Department of Public Health, in every case in writing to direct us as to how we should deal with that positive case. It is important that our department heads and elected officials follow that process so that we can track every single positive case and any contact with employees within that department division or outside of that department for future reference. So if something comes up in the future with a person who says that they were in that office and something happened, we can go and pull the record, and we can assure them that we contacted the Department of Public Health. We followed the Department of Public Health and CDC guidelines. And so we do that in every instance. There is, we have positive cases within the government in a number of different departments. And if department heads and elected officials have done what we require that they do, we can tell you every case, and we can tell you how many cases, and then we can tell you the disposition, how we dealt with it, and we have documentation to support that from the Department of Public Health. And there were a positive case or two in that office that you mentioned, and we have positive cases on a regular basis throughout the government, and we process them and handle them in a responsible manner. Typically, I don't hear about it on the 6 o'clock news because it has gone through that process. And I can tell you, I learned about this on the 6 o'clock news. But ideally, we encourage everyone to work through that process, because safety and taking care of our employees is first and foremost. And I can tell you, when those department heads or elected officials follow that process, we send in the team to sanitize that office anywhere that positive case worked. We send someone in and we document that we sanitize that office. And so we have records to show all of this, so that if something pops up a year from now or 2 years from now, or someone makes some allegation, we want to be able to go back and pull the record. And so the government center is operational. We have the technology that we don't stop operations when we have positive cases. We don't miss a beat. And so we are completely operational, but we have had, and we will continue to have positive cases until this virus goes away.
Mr. City Manager, if someone, for example, has business with the municipal court and they want to check to see if they're open, do they just call the number of the municipal court, or is there someone answering the phone, or, you know, what, that's one of the concerns that I have, not only for our employees to make sure that they are safeguarded, but if a citizen, you know, needs to go to municipal court or needs to go to, you know, juvenile court or whatever, is there what is the best way for them to find out what's happening?
I would encourage them to call municipal court clerk's office first. If they do not get an answer, then they should dial 311 and let our citizen service technicians assist them by making contact with that office. But every office should remain functional. We don't close down, shut down because there's 1 or 2 or 3 positive cases. We continue to operate.
And 311 would have a list of all of the offices that are closed or those kinds of things, I would assume, so that if I call 311, they can tell me that, you know, the inspections and codes is closed or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if an office is closed, if we go through our process, then we should be posting that on our website to say that that office is closed, please contact, tell them how to make contact to continue to do business with that office.
Good. Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Sure.
Thank you. And the last thing I'll say about the pandemic during this update is just I want to remind everybody to be kind to one another. If there is a neighbor or a family member that has been staying in their home and really kind of sheltering in place for the most part, reach out to them, contact them. As we've talked about a lot, the mental stress, the emotional issues that occur with this pandemic are very, very real. And especially during this time of the year, when people tend to miss loved ones a little harder, they tend to, you know, it has the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And we want to look after the entire person of the folks that are in our community. So if you want to do something really good this holiday season, just pick up the phone and call somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Just tell them you're thinking about them, wish them happy holidays, and just make sure they're doing okay. Anyway, thank you. All right. No further information being dispensed on that today, so we'll move on to the city attorney. Hang on, we've got Councilor Woodson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a personal point of privilege to thank my colleagues, City Council, yourself, the City Manager, Deputy City Manager, everyone. Y'all know where my heart is, and I'm sorry if I leave anybody out. And to the public, thank you for the prayers and the texts and calls. I haven't finished answering all of them, and I apologize. But thank you for the prayers for my family. It's been tough. I tell people my faith has been tested, but evil's not winning. God continues to win in my life. He's given me more strength. The love of my life, my best friend, my world. My mom passed away on 11/29, the night before she died. I got a call from Germany. My son had kidney failure. But thank God he's doing well. And about 4 days ago, my uncle passed away. So my family is going through some tough times, but our faith, our faith has really, really taken us. And I personally have some great testimonies because God does answer your prayers. He's right on time. I prayed to spend my birthday with my mom, and I mean, I could have been a little better, but I did get to spend my birthday with my mom, Thanksgiving, and I was blessed more than other people have been to be by her side all the way till she closed her eyes. So for all my friends, family, thank you. Thank you. Your prayers and your love, your text meant the world to me, helped me to stay strong. So on behalf of my family and all, we say thank you. A lot of people are asking me about funeral arrangements or memorial. I've decided, and my family, thank God, supported my wishes. Once we can gather together again, then we will celebrate my mom. We're going to celebrate her life the way she wanted it to be celebrated. So once we can gather, I'll let my colleagues and her friends and those that want to join us in her celebration too. As Latinos, we like to hug and kiss, and family from all over wants to come. So I thought, hey, let's protect everybody. Let's just wait. Once the corona's in control and we can gather again, then we'll celebrate her life. I did get her cremated, so I have her, and once we finish the celebration, and we'll take her back home where she was born. For right now, we're just waiting on this wonderful corona to take its place so that we can celebrate her life. So again, thank you for this point of privilege, and thank you to everyone. My family and I, all over Chicago, Puerto Rico, New York, California, they all say thank you.
Well, Councilor Woodson, you've been lifted up in the prayers of the council and the entire government and the entire community. So our thoughts and prayers are with you. Mr. City Attorney?
Okay, thank you, Mayor. We do have several business items that need a vote on final action. First one up is the zoning matter at 3100 Auburn Avenue for storage units. It's ready for adoption.
Motion approved by the Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilor Crabb. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, say no. That passes.
All right, next item, Mayor, is the organizational structure change at the police department. Chief Blackman has
Motion
been
approved
here.
from Mayor Pro Tem, second from Councilor Tucker. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, say no. All right, that's approved.
All right, third item is the fire department reorganization, restructure. It's ready for adoption.
Motion approved from Councilor Woodson, second from Councilor House. Any discussion on that item? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. That's approved.
All right, next is the human resources policy 220-1010 on job vacancies.
Motion approved from Councilor Barnes, second from Councilor House. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. That's approved.
All right, next the amendment to the property maintenance code. Mr. Pruitt, give him some flexibility.
Motion approved from Councilor Woodson. There was a second from Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, say no. That passes.
All right, next is the Sunday alcohol sales starting at 11 a.m. and the home delivery consistent with the new state law.
Motion approved from Councilor Crabb, second from Councilor Woodson. Any discussion on that item? All in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, say no. That's approved.
All right, then the FY20 final reconciliation. Mayor's ready for adoption.
Motion approved from the Mayor Pro Tem, second from Councilor Woodson. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, say no. That's approved.
Okay, we have one first reading, Mayor. This is requested by Mayor Pro Tem and the Golf Authority are asking for these amendments so that the executive director can make some hiring moves where they have vacancies, and they're asking that it be adopted today on one reading, which it can be. But any questions about that?
Motion to approve from the Mayor Pro Tem, second from Councilor Huff. Is there any discussion? These are some time-sensitive personnel changes that he needs this authorization for. All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. That passes. Mr. Arendt is here, I believe.
That passes then. Mayor, that's all the business items we have listed, and we appreciate it.
All right, we'll move on to the public agenda. First up is Ms. Shannon Hobbs, representing the Girl Scout Concharty Council and Troop 50109 regarding the Girl Scout house at Lake Bottom Park. I want to invite them to the podium. Welcome, ladies. Listen, you'll have 5 minutes to share what you're here to share. I'll kind of wave at you when you've got 1 minute left, and that'll give you sort of a warning, okay?
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm Gabby Toms.
And Kellen Hobbs with the Girl Scouts, Troop 50109. We are here to request 20 parking places, better lighting, and sidewalks at the Little Girl Scout house at Lake Bottom Park.
Recently, we mailed out proposals to everyone about this issue. If you did not receive it, we have copies with us.
This request is important because we want to be able to use the house safely for our council troops. We are requesting 20 designated parking places, better lighting, and sidewalks around the Little Girl Scout house.
The Little Girl Scout house will be remodeled soon and will serve as the local office for our Concharity Council. We respectfully ask for the city's help getting these items finished when the house has completed the remodel.
Does the mayor and council have any further questions for us?
I don't think anybody has any questions. I think they're just very impressed with your request and the health safety items that you're trying to take care of to improve the Girl Scout hut. And we're just very proud of what y'all are doing. I know this pandemic has changed the way you do your meetings, and we just are very, very grateful for you being here to share some of the
Thank you.
some of the things going on. Council, are there any questions or any comments? First is, let's see, Councilor Garrett.
Mr. Mayor, this is in my district, and I know that there's been a need for this for quite some time, and that's in that area in general. Lake Bottom's a gym in the city and a gym in my district, but the bushes over there, and when it's not so cold, I'll normally run pretty early in the morning when it's dark. And I know there's been concerns about the lighting in that area. What can we do to get this done for them?
Well, city manager, I'm going to access him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will assign Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge and City Engineer Donna Newman to take a look at the request and work with these young ladies and any other representative from Girl Scout. Certainly we want to make sure that we have sufficient lighting, and so we will take a look and evaluate the lighting, and we will certainly take a look and evaluate the parking demand too. I think we've got to look at, in terms of parking, the peak usage. I don't know if it's early spring, summer. We need to do a parking assessment to look at the demand. In other words, if we carve out 20 spaces for Girl Scouts, how is that going to impact the high demand time periods at Lake Bottom? Certainly we want them, and I believe they should have designated parking.
Sure.
We just got to evaluate it, because we don't want to pass a problem on to the neighborhood where people start to spill over into the neighborhood and parking in front of houses over there. So we'll have Pam Hodge and Donna Newman to get with them, work with them to see certainly the lighting, but the parking, I think, requires more study.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Absolutely, and I know that the Girl Scouts are doing a lot of work on that facility. So it would, I think it'd be a great enhancement if we could try to see if we can get it done. So I thank you for looking into it. Councilor Thomas?
Mr. City Manager, that area is in the Midtown TAD, is it not? Isn't it?
I would have to check to verify. I don't know that we put the park in.
Well, here's what I want you to check.
Yes.
Okay. If there is a way that we can help with this using some TAD funding that may or may not be used in other for other things, I think this is what, in my mind, the TAD money was there for.
Well, let me just interrupt because the staff just said it's not. I
It is
wasn't
not,
sure.
okay.
I didn't think we put that park in the TAD, but he just verified it.
Oh, okay, okay.
But we're going to certainly take a look and.
I was just looking for some money.
Yeah. I mean, if it works out, I mean, maybe the paving fund or some other, but I think it's going to be critical. I recall when we had the challenge over there where Columbus High School did not have parking on campus, and the students spilled over into the neighborhood, and it became an issue.
Right.
And then now Columbus High School have on-campus parking, and now we don't hear all of that. So we certainly don't want to try and fix a situation and create one. So we'll certainly take a look.
Well, that, the Concharity Council house has been on that corner for
72 years.
A long time. And I want us to do whatever we can to help them be successful.
Sure.
Ladies, thank you very much. Appreciate y'all being here this morning.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, while they're here, I do have an item on my agenda for the lease agreement at the Girl Scouts of Historic Georgia, 1807 17th Street. And it's if you want to, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to make a quick motion to approve an extension of that lease for 20 years, there's a motion by Councilor Woodson, second by Councilor Crabb. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, that lease extension is approved. All right, next up on the public agenda is Ms. Teresa Elamine. Is Ms. Elamine here? Well, at the end of the clerk's agenda, we'll allow, if she shows up, we'll allow her 3 minutes on that agenda after that's completed. All right, and I think Mr. Timothy Veals has counseled, is that correct? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the city manager's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, we heard from Chris Woodruff regarding the Uptown Tax Allocation District Fund grant for Highside Market. He presented.
Motion approved from Councilor Woodson and a second from Councilor Tucker. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. That's approved. And I tell you, that was an incredibly impressive presentation last week, Mr. Woodruff. We're looking forward to that coming to fruition.
Next, I've got a Georgia Department of Transportation CCG partnership for signalization projects that we're asking your approval on. It's at the intersection of Victory Drive and 10th Avenue and the westbound exit ramp at J.R. Allen Parkway.
Motion approved from Mayor Pro-Tem, second from Councilor Woodson. Any further discussion? Oh, there is. I'm sorry. Councilor Davis.
Well, you can go ahead and take a vote, and then I'll.
Councilor Thomas to the motion.
I wonder maybe if Ms. Newman, this is at the cemetery?
Yes, ma'am, in that general direction.
Tell me what you want to do here. I read the stuff, but tell me what we're looking for at this.
We were actually contacted by the Georgia Department of Transportation. They were reviewing annually they review accident history, and they noticed a large number of accidents at these locations and were concerned with safety. And they do have some specialized funding for these type projects, so they coordinated with us and wanted to install signals at these locations. And the reason it requires our participation is the city has pretty much adopted the black powder coated strain poles and mast arms. That's our standard that we use on all of our projects, so that they don't use those type materials. So they have asked us if we want to install those, then we would have to provide that. And then we also operate and maintain those signals, so we have to make an application as the operator of the signal, if you will.
So is the signal will be controlling traffic coming from
10th Avenue on to Victory Drive.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right. Any other comments to the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. All right, it passed. I think Councilor Davis wants to celebrate that there's finally a light there.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, Ms. City Manager, staff, all those involved, I think this is solving a problem that we've been working on for many years now, and it's really going to be a good thing. But I think everybody's aware there's been a lot of tragedies, a lot of injuries, things of that nature that have just taken place in the vicinity, and I think this is going to be a wonderful solution. I've talked about in this area of the J.R. Allen and River Road, we've talked about this for a long time, about the necessity for lighting. I guess my question here, will this, what we're proceeding forward here, would this provide the necessary lighting for that area to, so people can be assured of their safety in driving?
We are actively working with Georgia Power on the lighting, the street lighting concern.
Is it a separate issue?
It is a separate issue.
Okay. Is there I guess my next question, what is the timeline on that? And the reason I'm asking is because I know there's been approvals already that have taken place, but we've got a serious problem there. We really do. And I was actually involved in a matter where a car went up the wrong entranceway coming straight at me on the ramp and had to swerve. I swerved off the road, but I have since avoided that exit ramp like the plague. I just don't go that way anymore. But I've noticed in my travels there too that a lot of people just, they can't see and they go the wrong way. It's just not well defined. It's a traffic hazard right now. We know that. We've had several incidents and accidents. Is this a matter that we can expedite soon before somebody really gets serious hurt again?
I will touch base with Georgia Power and get an update on where they're at with that project.
If this is now a Georgia Power matter and then putting in the installation?
The street light issue is Georgia Power. The signal, we will work with DOT. And of course, we have to order the materials and have them available for them to install the signal.
Okay. Mr. City Manager, I guess you just heard my comments. Could you assist and help so we can work on this this matter, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Let me ask, just adding to that, Madam Engineer, as a temporary solution, what about those bollards that they've put over on Williams Road and then put reflectors on the top and maybe a do not enter on the one side and something to signal that people getting on J.R. Allen need to go the other? Is a temporary fix, perhaps, until we can get some more lighting from Georgia Power. I'm just asking.
Well, Mayor, I think there's been a lot of effort to try to do something there, including signage, and you just, I question if there's anything that can be done without some lighting. You just need to see where you're going.
Okay. All right. We'll take care of that. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, next on my agenda, you heard had a presentation last week regarding creating a tax allocation district number 8 to be known as South Columbus River District TAD. And as I bring it forward to you today, requesting approval to create this tax allocation district number 8 to be known as South Columbus River District TAD. This will be a public hearing, and so if there are those in the audience who would want to speak to this proposed tax allocation district number 8, known as South Columbus River District, they will have a chance to come to the podium and speak. As you know, tax allocation districts have two distinct processes: setting up boundaries, adopting a redevelopment plan, and approval of projects for funding. As I said on Tuesday, December 8th, it's a public hearing, so
Go ahead and finish.
on Tuesday, December 8th, the boundaries of the South Columbus TAD number 8 were presented to City Council along with a redevelopment plan. And so today I'm asking City Council to adopt the boundaries of the South Columbus TAD number 8 and the redevelopment plan. As you know, TAD boundaries are established by December 31st of each year, in which it is adopted to set the tax base. At the time the TAD is established, there is no financial incentive or conflict to any of the property owners within a TAD. And of course, we had a lot of discussion last week. Kathy Williams, the president and CEO of NeighborWorks, and a Muskogee County School Board member, could potentially request funding from the TAD, but not in her individual capacity, but as an officer of NeighborWorks. This would be done at a later date, and there may or may not be a conflict or financial incentive, as has been noted by the city attorney in that discussion last week. I have looked at it, my staff looked at it, and we see no conflict at this time. I gave a lot of thought to it, and when I look at conflict, if you will, I thought about myself in my capacity as city manager. And I said to myself, city manager directs staff to purchase property within a TAD, acting in his capacity as city manager. Staff seal the deal with a contract to purchase the property. It goes on the city manager's agenda, not for the city manager as a personal transaction or for personal gain, but on behalf of the CCG, the city. The city council, once it goes on my agenda, you take a vote to approve on my agenda. The city manager then brings forward that on the city manager's agenda for the city, not for personal use or for personal gain. Requesting your approval at a later date after the purchase has been approved, I come forward and request that you authorize construction of a project on that property within the TAD. That is a real situation that could happen. And if that were to happen, I had to ask myself, is there a conflict with me as city manager? Because I'm not acting as an individual, I'm acting as a COO. I'm an officer. And so when I look closely at Kathy Williams, I'm not the lawyer, but I look at her situation in this, when we start talking about conflict, similar to what the city manager's position would be if the city manager were to come forward to purchase property in a TAD and ask you for approval and come back later and ask you to allow us to construct the project. Because when you look at the law, it applies to appointed and elected officials. But I'm acting as a COO and not as an individual, and there's transparency and everyone knows what's going on. I'm not the lawyer, but I had to think through as staff came forward and said, this person is acting in their capacity as president and CEO. So with that said, I'm comfortable today requesting approval to create tax allocation district number 8 to be known as South Columbus River District. As I explained, your approval would designate boundaries of the redevelopment area and tax allocation district, establish the last known tax increment base, and adopt a redevelopment plan for the area. Your approval would establish the intent to issue and sell tax allocation bonds as necessary to effectuate the redevelopment of the area. And so after we hear from those in the audience, if there are those who want to be heard, Mayor and Council, I would ask for your approval to create tax allocation district number 8, known as the South Columbus River District TAD. And so if there are those in the audience who would want to be heard, I would invite you to the podium and the microphone at this time. Mayor, I don't see any, and so I'm happy to answer questions, and then of course I would ask you for a vote of approval.
Councilor Huff.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Manager, I was absent last meeting, but I did sit down and review the meeting at home. I'm not against the project. My concern is basically being an elected official. My business sits in a TAD. And a few years ago, when we hashed this out, it was stated to us by the previous administration that if you were elected and you didn't purchase the property 2 years prior to the TAD project, you were ineligible. So my question is, in these circumstances, would I too be eligible if I took a back seat and put my brother up front on a project in a TAD district?
Well, again, I'm not a lawyer, but when I looked at this, I looked at it from the standpoint that the city is public and nonprofit, and Kathy Williams, as president and CEO of NeighborWorks, is a nonprofit, not-for-profit agency. And so I don't know how it would apply to a for-profit agency, but I looked at it from the standpoint of an agency that's doing public good and is not for profit. And the NeighborWorks, as we know, works at no profit, trying to create low to mod affordable housing for people in our community, and it's a nonprofit organization. She just happens to be the president and CEO. I'm not here to defend her by any means. I don't represent her. I just had to step back and take a look at what's on the table and how that would apply if the city manager was bringing forward something that's good for the community, the public, and not for profit. Yeah, and there's no personal gain. Yeah, I looked at it from that standpoint.
The city attorney may have some input on your specific
question. Let me just say to Mr. City Manager, I am in no way against the project. I'm in no way against NeighborWorks. What I'm looking at is there had been some plans in the past to start a nonprofit, and for me to take a back seat because I was elected and I was told that I couldn't do it that way. So that's why I'm asking, not against NeighborWorks, it's just personal now, trying to figure out if we can do this. Will I be able to, my brother or somebody in my family have a nonprofit within a TAD move forward with the project as long as I recuse myself? That's all I'm asking. I'm not against the project at all.
Yeah, well, that's, I will yield to the city attorney on that.
Okay, Counselor, if you or any other counselor here had acquired any property in a TAD directly or through a nonprofit within the past 2 years, the law requires you to disclose that and not participate in any discussion on the formation of the TAD boundaries or any project in that TAD boundary. The law also prohibits you or your family member that could be an indirect interest from acquiring property in a TAD in the future. That would be a voluntary acquisition, and the statute says that council members are not supposed to acquire property in a TAD district. So that's something we would have to look at if there was a nonprofit that you were involved in that was acquiring property in a TAD. It may not be a financial interest, but it's possible it could be an indirect interest. We would need to look at that. But if you have one now in this particular TAD or another one, if you have an interest now, then all you have to do is disclose it if you've acquired that interest in the last 2 years.
That's the way I understand it. I'm just trying to find out the difference between this TAD and my example. Because this property, was it purchased? I thought it was purchased within a 2-year period.
Well, the only thing you have to be concerned with today is, do you have an interest in this TAD with these boundaries being proposed? You or your family member, that could be an indirect interest. If so, then you should recuse.
No, I don't have an issue today. Like I said,
Okay.
I'm for the project. I'm voting for the project. I'm just trying to see as an elected official.
Right.
For the future, with one person being elected on a different board and I'm elected on this board.
Yeah, in the future, if something comes up, we would need to look at the structure. If you were involved in a nonprofit, we would need to see how that nonprofit works. You know,
Okay.
do you have any financial interest, even indirect? That's something we would have to look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions from council regarding this item? Councilor Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. I do plan to abstain from this matter. And let me just say, I've looked at this in many different ways. I wish it would have came in a TAD request for 8 and 9, but it's all kind of together. But, my concerns, I'm not concerned for some of the projects. I am concerned about taxpayer funding, tax abatement for a casino project. That does really concern me. And, I do have issues with the application process. So I personally, in looking at this, I'm just, I think the more and more we get into these TADs, I think for my interest as elected official and a real estate developer, I think that it's probably best for me to abstain from these matters. In this case, I'm going to keep an arm length away from these forming of boundaries, and the reason being so because I may have the intent to develop in these areas one day. So I think it's best for me to do that, and I'm going to abstain on this vote.
All right, Councilor Thomas?
I want to make sure that I understand, and Mr. City Attorney, perhaps you can help me. What we are approving in this item is not a tax allocation project.
Right.
It is the district It is the land
Boundaries.
that we designate as the TAD. At this point, we do not have a recommendation or a proposal from NeighborWorks, from a casino, from anybody else to build something on this property. All we are doing is saying, this is the boundary that would be available if you, at a later date, want to do this. Is that accurate, Mr.
That's
Attorney?
accurate. There is no specific project approval by this body today. You're just being asked to approve the redevelopment area. If later on NeighborWorks has a specific project, or First Baptist Church or anybody else, they will come to you. They'll come back with Planning Division for a specific vote of approval.
Yeah, I concur.
And if we do this allocation district, it may be that somebody other than NeighborWorks or other than would come back to us, and we still have the ability to require certain things go in this district, or to say, no, you're not, this is not what we want to do. At our meeting last week, there was a good bit of conversation about whether or not this would be a casino location. And there were things that were said about how the casino would be formulated. There is no legislation in the Georgia General Assembly on what casinos are. And if you will recall, for the last several years when they've been talked about, some of the legislation that has been proposed has said one casino in the state of Georgia. Some have been one casino in the state of Georgia and in Atlanta and 2 outside. I mean, there's nothing for us to consider about a casino at this time.
That is correct.
And so I just feel like we need to, first of all, be very careful of our terminology. This is a district. This is not a project.
Yes.
And it may be that once all of this falls out, NeighborWorks and First Baptist Church and, ABC company, whatever is there, may come to us with a project.
Yes.
But at this point, we are not approving anything except this boundary.
That is absolutely correct. And it says in the agenda report to designate the boundaries of the redevelopment area and tax allocation district, to establish the last known tax increment base, which is what we do when you approve a TAD at the end of the year starting January, and adopt a redevelopment plan for the area, to establish the intent to issue and sell tax allocation bonds as necessary to effectuate the redevelopment of the area. And you're right, legislation has been discussed before at the state, and it has gone nowhere regarding casino. And we submitted a resolution that, and it would be that even if there was a referendum statewide for a casino, then you would have to have a local election, and the locals would have to decide whether you want a casino. But that is even after it was offered up. If there's only 2 and they're all in metro, I mean, there's no need. And so it's really premature to even talk about what might be in the TAD. And whatever goes in the TAD has to come back through this body for approval. So we're talking about boundaries.
I just wanted to be sure that the people who are listening to our conversation today realize that we are not approving.
That's right.
NeighborWorks, and we are not approving a casino, and we are not approving any of that. And what we are approving is that these are the lines of a district. And if you want to put a casino in there when that is authorized, bring it to us and we'll take a look at it.
Well, and not
And we
only-
may say at that point, no, we don't want, we won't do that. We won't approve that project. Just because we have a district does not mean we have to approve the project.
That's right.
Absolutely. All right, is that all, ma'am?
Thank you.
Councilor Crabb?
Thank you. This would be the first TAD that boundaries that I would vote on. And so, of course, I'm taking a lot of information in and still trying to learn about TADs and how they work, and trying to keep an open mind, because I too, like Councilor Huff and Councilor Davis, got instructed on how I can do business or cannot do business in a TAD prior to me becoming an elected official. And it not only affects me, but it affects my son, who is also in business with me. So I'm trying to keep an open mind, but this is the way I see it. I understand the side that wants to set up a TAD this year because it will freeze the taxes as of January 1st of 2021. And then going forward, if there's any additional taxes above the base, then it goes into the TAD account. I'm looking right here because I asked Angelica to give me some accounting on 2 TADs because Councilor Thomas and I were talking about using TAD dollars to help the Girl Scouts. Right now, there's 2 TADs, Midwest, and it's holding $478,042, and then the Mid-East is holding $23,272. So I'm thinking that if we are premature in setting up these TADs when there's really no shovel-ready projects, then we're putting money in these TADs prematurely. Like some of these funds could have been used to help the Girl Scouts, but Girl Scouts isn't in the TAD, and so they can't be used. We can't use those funds to help the Girl Scouts. So that's my concern, is tying up land too soon and taking money out of our general funds that we can't use for projects that are needed right now in the hopes of waiting for projects down the line. And it's like, how far down the line are these projects going to be? I believe from talking with Kathy Williams that the NeighborWorks Columbus project could start next year. It's shovel ready. However, the other area, and it's the majority of this TAD district, that other area, it has no plans yet. And so we're tying up, that money into a TAD district, and I just don't feel like that's the best use of our tax dollars, is tying them up that way. I would feel better of creating 2 TADs, one for NeighborWorks right now, because they're shovel ready and they're ready to bring us a project pretty quickly, and then hold off until we have something more definite for the rest of that allocation area. So I'd like us to have a little bit more time to investigate that possibility of having a tax allocation District 8 that is the area that NeighborWorks Columbus is talking about, and then in the future look into creating a tax allocation District 9 for the other area.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may say that TADs are an economic development tool. And when you create a TAD in an economically depressed area, the idea is that you start to create some capacity that would encourage economic development. And so if you've got a TAD and you start to create this revenue that, in the example that you just used in the East and West, then some economic development project may come along and say, if you let me use some of that money you've accumulated in TAD to put in some infrastructure, then I can bring you a $100 million business, and it may be the deal breaker. If we put the infrastructure in using this money that has accumulated over several years, then we can attract this business to an economically depressed area where that business otherwise would never have considered. And so if you don't have the TAD and you're not creating this money, then it could be the deal breaker that causes you to lose millions of dollars of economic development in an economically depressed area where people need jobs, and we need to redevelop a community, a neighborhood that is in a severe state of decline. And so that's the idea behind this economic development too.
All right. Just leave your light on it.
Okay, sorry. I agree with you. This area does really, in fact, I believe this area could use the infrastructure dollars more than even the Midwest and the Mideast. I mean, what kind of infrastructure does the center of town need? I mean, so to me, this area is more justified, you know, building dollars up and to be used towards infrastructure. But my point is, if we do it prematurely, like we did here in Midwest and Mideast, I mean, where's the infrastructure in those two areas?
Well,
we could use this money in the other areas that do need infrastructure.
well, no, if you didn't have the TAD, that money would not be available because it would be in the general fund. It would be general fund. It would not be set aside to encourage economic development. It would not be there. It would be there, but we'd be using it to do other things through the general fund. I guess when you say premature,
but don't
it's having vision and look at. We've got to grow all of Columbus together if we're going to have one Columbus. We can't have. What's the infusion in an economically depressed area like this TAD District Number 8? How are we going to help that area? If we keep doing what we've been doing for that area, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting. We got to do something different. This is an economic development tool that gives that area a chance.
But don't we have an economic development fund that we split with Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, but this is a different kind of economic development. That's to recruit economic development. And what we put into that fund, we do 0.25 mils for the chamber. That's $1 million and 1.5 million, let's say, that 0.25.
And that second portion of the fund was originally set up to be sort of deal closing money. If you're bringing in a big manufacturing organization, then the way that money was originally designed was when they need money to incentivize them to move or to hook up to utilities or to construct something that they need. That's where that money was to be accessible only upon agreement of the council to use the money for that. And we have used it for a couple of other things lately because we've had some unique opportunities.
And they'll tell you that that's not enough. So if we can have an enterprise zone, if we can have a TAD.
Oh, did I? Turned them all off.
every economic development tool that we can put in our quiver to help make communities better, we need, in my opinion, need to put it there. Now, when you mention the West and the East in Midtown, when those funds continue to grow, all of the area that we included in the Midtown TAD, they could come to this council and make a request to use some of that money to clean up some of those economically depressed areas in Midtown. We need, it's my opinion, that we need a similar tool in South Columbus. And if we don't start it right now, where you got 7 other TADs, then they are going to continue to lag behind. We need to give that area of our community the same opportunity for success that we've given to Uptown and Liberty District and Midtown and all of the others out in the Panhandle. We've done all those areas. How about South Columbus?
Yep, and I think the deal is it is an economic development tool, and frankly, it's not one that every counselor is going to agree with, but it is an opportunity, I think, to start investing, create a pool that will allow us to invest in enticing some of the development in that area, because you've got a couple of entities that are in control of that property out there that are pretty forward-minded individuals. So I would imagine they're not just sitting waiting on a casino. They're looking for a way to create a quality of life down there, and a lot of it's going to be residential. Councilor Woodson?
Yes, I don't want to be redundant, but I think Councilor Thomas had painted the picture exactly like I would. Let's not confuse, and the city manager has also said it, let's not confuse what we're doing today. All we're doing today is setting a boundary. All we're doing today is putting a tool in place to allow developers to take interest in South Columbus. We did it in Midland. We did it all over. I know there's concerns about the developer, but we don't know what's going to happen by the time it develops. It might not be Kathy. It might be someone else. We keep talking about a casino, and Councilor Thomas made it so clear that might not even happen. And the individuals that own that property will get an incentive to build more homes or do something else. We don't know. We need this. My community needs this. District 7 needs this. The people of South Columbus needs it. We are trying to redevelop. We are trying to be the community we used to be. We want to be like Midland. We want to be like Old Town. We want good development. And when these developers come, there'll be community meetings. They will be discussed. There's so many people that used to live in South Columbus, moved to North, and they say, well, I really like South Columbus. I grew up, I have good funds. Well, prove it now. We're going to give a tax allocation. Prove it. Come back. And just as the city manager said, we want a one Columbus. We don't want this division anymore. So what we do for one side of the city, we need to do for the other one. So I asked my colleagues today, you say you're for the people, your voice is of the people, you want to see development, then let's approve this. Let's show the people of South Columbus we believe in them. And we're going to control what goes and don't go in that district anyway. Let's put funding there so we could do infrastructure, so we can do lighting, so we can do the things to bring it just like other parts of Columbus. So Mayor, I would like to call for the vote, please.
Okay, well, I think we've had a motion, that's all right now. Councilor, our motion second, we've got a lot of folks to the motion though. Councilor Garrett?
I just wanted to speak to the motion. This is our last meeting of 2020. If we don't get this done today, if we try and go back and redraw boundaries, there are going to be setbacks. There are projects that we already know of. Nobody knows about the casinos everyone's discussed. This is a boundary that we're discussing. But we do have projects that we know that will come that will be positive. Part of them are church-related, part of them are related to NeighborWorks, part of them are going to be retail. But I think it's important we do this today. We do it in 2020 because this will send the message that we believe in South Columbus. This is some of our most prime real estate because this TAD boundary goes from a river boundary all the way through South Columbus, and it will entice investors. And we just saw, if y'all looked at the ledger yesterday, Harris County, I know it won a lot of jobs, but they just got a manufacturing job. Maybe they would have gone to South Columbus. If we can create incentive for jobs in South Columbus, the people who have been saying there's none of the nice restaurants go to South Columbus, that's going to change. This is a first step, and I think we need to vote on this today. We need to go ahead and get this done. I don't think this is something we can take back to the drawing board, or it's going to delay projects that may never happen, projects that will be positive for Columbus.
And to that point, if we get past January 1st, then the allocation district revenue won't begin to be generated until January 1st of 2022, because it has to go through the next assessment with our tax digest and could not begin accruing, my understanding, until the following year.
That's correct.
So that's why it's a little time sensitive, as Councilor Garrett pointed out. Councilor Tucker?
I also agree with what the city manager has said and what Councilor Woodson and Garrett and Councilor Thomas. I'm in support of, designating this TAD. However, with Councilor Crabb's questions and also Councilor Huff, I do believe that maybe we need to have some remedial training on TADs. I just finished ACCG, newly elected officials training, so I understand that this is a way for us to have economic development. I know that this is a tool. However, it seems like there is some confusion on what we're doing right now, and right now all we're doing is designating the boundaries. And I'm not sure if the girls' club was actually in the boundaries. So that's a question. And if it's not in the boundaries, we can't compare apples to oranges. We got to compare apples to apples. So it wasn't in the boundaries. That's right. You get what I'm saying? So my thing is, right now we're trying to get South Columbus to get the same things that Uptown and Midtown. We met with Chris Woodruff, and he has an amazing plan. These are things that can be done in South Columbus. So let's really, I feel like we're focusing on things that we really shouldn't be focusing on right now. It's only designating the boundaries. It's not about NeighborWorks. It's not about the casino. We don't know what will come to that area. We don't. It can be something great. It can be the new Savannah. It can be what we want Columbus to be, is a tourist town. We're trying to move towards that. And with Fort Benning having graduations all the time and, different people coming to our city for different events, we have to look at it like that. Do we want to be the for real second largest city in the state of Georgia and also be a boom town for tourism? Or do we want to continue to, lag behind? So those are the questions that you ask. Don't focus so much on casinos and NeighborWorks. We're just doing a designation of boundaries.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Councilor Davis?
Thanks, Mayor. I just listening to some of the conversation around the table. I think last week we had a presentation that was very clear on the request. I think that you always got to be up front with the citizens in our community if you want their support. It's the intent. I say it again, it's the intent. And everybody knows it's the intent. You don't want to give the perception of being disingenuous to the community. Never, never, ever. They won't buy into it and you won't gain their support. So, Mayor, I've got some suggestions. You can go ahead and move forward with the vote if nobody else has any comments, but I've got some suggestions on this.
I had a quick question, and this is sort
Sure.
of a legal question, because you'd asked to be considered for abstention,
Oh, yeah.
and I think council has to allow that, and it's my understanding that if there's if you abstain, you can't participate in the discourse. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. Yes, the counselor would need to recuse from any further discussion on this matter if he's indicated he's going to abstain.
Well, Mayor, that's probably a good point. So instead of abstaining, I'm just not going to participate in the vote.
That
Same thing.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, so you're going to vote up or down on the item? Because if you don't participate in the vote, that's kind of the abstention.
Yeah, I can handle it.
Okay.
Mayor, it sounded like his intent was to recuse from the vote on this matter, and that would, normally he wouldn't participate in the discussion.
Yeah. And I guess that's where we are. And I just asked because I want to make sure we don't, since it's a TAD and those tend to get, some legal questions. If there's an abstention, if it's a true abstention, you're not going to vote up or down, then you are recused, I think, from being able to give opinions, or that's why in the past, I know Councilor Garrett, we have to leave the room actually when the discussion's going on.
That's right.
So if you want to vote just up or down on the item, then your participation in the discourse is appropriate.
I understand.
Okay.
Mayor, back to what I was saying though, after we finish with this matter, I do have some suggestions that I'd like to present to the city manager.
Okay. And with that, if you want to abstain, if anybody wants to make a motion to allow Councilor Davis to abstain, you can make that motion. All right. There's a motion from Councilor Garrett, second from Councilor Woodson to allow Councilor Davis to abstain.
I would call it a motion to allow recusal.
Councilor Thomas?
I guess my question is, what is the reason for his abstention? Don't you have to have a reason to abstain?
Well,
and it has to be.
Well, he stated earlier that he might be interested in a possible development in this district.
Well, so may I.
Yeah.
I just have a problem with that. Go ahead and take the vote.
Okay, Mayor Pro-Tem?
I feel similar to Councilor Thomas. If we allow him to abstain, and the reason is he may have an interest in developing in that area, then in my opinion, and I'm not an attorney, but it seems like he would not be able to participate in any further discussion in that area. So, and with this issue, so I would, and I'm not sure what category the city attorney. You said recusal.
Well,
what does that put? What situation does that put the counselor in?
I think Councilor Davis.
Yeah,
is
the
just,
basis.
I think the councilor's decided that he does not want to abstain, so that would allow him to comment. But then he would vote up or down with the rest of council on the item.
If he said he's not going to abstain, then what motion are we voting on?
We don't need to. His original request was that he be allowed to abstain. I think he is. I've just gotten word. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then Councilor Davis still has the right to make that he was making before he left. You see.
And again, one further point, Mayor. Any counselor has a right to abstain. That's different from asking for recusal because of a possible financial interest.
Okay. All right. Well, before we head down this path, Councilor Tucker, what's your question?
As I said, I'm just coming from training, and he said transparency.
Yes.
And I just think we have to be legal. Are you going to abstain or are you going to recuse yourself? Because
well, he's asked to abstain, but then he reversed, and this council can grant that request. but he has since decided he wants to vote on the item. So that does mean he can come in and he can participate in the discussion. He has withdrawn his request. My understanding, he's withdrawn his request to abstain. Councilor Woodson?
Yes. I just want clarification. If he's withdrawn himself from it, then shouldn't he be here to take a vote?
I'm sure he'll come back. He's not going.
I mean, he needs to come and vote then if he's excluding
I
himself
think
either up or
that's his
down.
intention.
That's crazy. He needs to come in and vote up or down. All he's got to do is vote no.
Well, let's, Madam Clerk, did you have something?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to say the motion on the floor currently is still requesting for Councilor Davis to abstain. So if that's being withdrawn, that motion was made by Councilor Garrett.
All right.
And seconded by Councilor Woodson. So if we were removing that.
All right, the motion's
And
withdrawn.
I withdraw it too. So let me get a clear understanding. If we take this vote right now and he's not here and he decided not to vote up or down, then he can come back and have a conversation of what we should be doing? I don't think that's right.
That'll be something for the city attorney to guide us on.
Is that
I don't
true?
know that
That's not right,
I
'cause
don't know
then
that
that
I've
means
ever
I can-
encountered a situation like this.
I don't think that's right, because that means then I can get up anytime I want if I don't want to support somebody, and then I'll come back and then I'll talk against it completely to get people to vote the way I want. Either you abstain or you vote up or down. Isn't that the correct political way?
Well, let's do this. Let's get some guidance from the city attorney. That would probably be the best course of action at this point. Mr. Fay?
The problem is if there's no abstention or no recusal, then there's an absent for this vote. And it's not clear on the record, why he has not participated. So if it's only an absent for this vote, then the record is silent as to the reason.
Okay, so where we are right now, and it's legal for us to be in the position we're in, is that
All right,
we have
let's
withdrawn, just a moment, ma'am. We have allowed the withdrawal of the motion to allow a counselor to abstain. And so that is no longer being requested consideration of this council. So where we are now is we have a motion and a second to approve that TAD. Is there any other discussion to that? Yes, ma'am. Councilor, your light's on.
I would like to ask if Director Jones could come and answer a couple of questions for me, if Mr. City Manager, if that's all right with you. Mr. Jones, you've heard some of the conversation today about splitting this this proposal into two areas. If we were to do that, can we do that today?
Yes. Yes. You'd have to modify.
Hey, turn that line on, sir.
And let me just say, before he answers, council obviously can do whatever they want with 6 votes. But we brought you a TAD with a proposal that has been vetted and gone through a process. And so from the city manager standpoint, we present it as it is, and then council can vote it up or down or split it. You can do whatever, but that is not what I recommend.
Well, I'm just trying to get some information so that I will know what I need to do. And I believe that Director Jones said we could split this district and only approve a portion of it today. Is that correct?
Not exactly, Councilor Thomas, because you can split it, yes. I mean, but what you're doing in that process.
You're off.
Yeah.
Rick, push the light and then let it be still for a second. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Councilor Thomas, you could, we're not recommending that, but you could do that in the sense because what you do with that is you're stopping the entire process here. We're at the stage now where you have an actual application for a new district to be formed today. That's what's before you. But if you want to go in there and split it out, you stop the process. And that means we got to go back, not we, but the applicant or applicants in this case have to go back and do another redevelopment plan for that one area.
Okay, here's my next question, Mr. Jones. If we were to do that, if we were to split off the NeighborWorks portion of that, and someone wanted to develop in a TAD the other piece of that property, how long is that process? How long would that take?
Well, I can only speak from past experience on the other tasks we have developed.
That's what I'm asking.
It's taking us up to 4 to 6 months to get that kind of work done, because we put the onus back on the actual applicant. We don't do that. We don't develop the redevelopment plan. If they're interested in establishing this TAD, it's on them to come up with that plan. We review that plan, of course, and make a recommendation to you, but we rely on them to make that kind of deal.
Well,
so if somebody wanted to come back with the other portion of what is today being proposed, it would take 4 to 6 months for them to get all of the paperwork done and the planning and all that and come back to us. So we're looking at mid-2021.
Somewhere in the neighborhood,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
And it would not be effective until, as
That's
the
the other
mayor
thing.
has alluded to, January of
Right.
2022. And I will say that,
Mayor, can I interject just for a minute? We need to get back on the right page. This council has the power today to modify this proposed plan. They can restrict the acreage, delete a parcel, change the boundaries if they want to today, and take final action today without getting into the next tax year.
and
I just want to make sure that's clear to everybody.
and I absolutely agree with that.
Well,
But I will say this. I agree with what you just said, Ms. City Attorney. But sometimes things just don't have a good look. And this does not have a good look to even go down that road of discussion. I would just leave it at that.
Well, and there has been no motion to separate those two. So I think other than
I'm just
having
trying
a
to get some
discussion-
information so that I'll know which way I want to go next, and this is
Well,
the
let's-
kind of thing I'm trying to do. I'm not proposing that we split it.
Yeah, I think splitting it would send a mixed message from this government, and I think it would be, I think it would be counterproductive to what we're trying to do in that particular area out there with the housing development. So is there any desire to make a motion to amend this request that's before us? If there's not, then let's move forward to the vote. There is a motion to second to approve the item. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, that passes. Councilor Crabb?
I was just going to mention, I brought up splitting it, and I'm looking at these numbers just from Midtown where it's split. There's 2 different TADs here. One has almost $500,000 in it, and the other has $23,000. So I can see the advantage of keeping them as one, because the funds will build faster. And so I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I've got some purchases. I've got inmate
All right, we have a motion to approve all of the purchases. Item A through J there's a sec from Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilor Garrett. Is there an item that anybody'd like pulled for discussion? All right. Councilor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to necessarily pull it for discussion. I would just like the cost clarified on A and B, but I'm all for approving all of them.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we will have the city manager go through them after we approve them. I just want to make sure there's no objections. All right, all in favor of items A through J? Any opposed, say no. All right, Mr. City Manager, if you'd walk through those.
Yes, sir. The first one is inmate commissary services for Muskogee County Prison. And note that when you see items on the agenda that says RFP, they're requests for proposals. And staff will have a chance to go and do negotiations on the and come to a final price. And so you're authorizing staff to negotiate the price. So the first one is inmate commissary services for Muskogee County Prison, which is an RFP. And then you'll note that environmental monitoring services is also an RFP. And there's an authorization to execute an annual contract with Atlantic Coastal Consulting, Inc. for monitoring, for environmental monitoring services for public works on an as-needed basis. And so this is for the various landfills that we have. C, paper and plastic products, and that's an estimated annual contract of $195,918.45. D, E1, active air purification systems for fire EMS, and you can see that that's in the amount of $63,900. E, repair of dump trucks for public works, that's $25,464.16. F, side loader recycling trucks for public works. We brought it to you last week. We had a discussion on those trucks and presented a price to you. G, E1, fire trucks with related equipment for fire EMS. The mayor talked about last week those critical equipment needs for fire EMS, ladder truck, engine, and so forth. And then H, the ambulance units that were mentioned to you last week. 2 ambulance units is H. And then shop vac software upgrade and mobile computer wands for public works, $81,435. And then J, grab all that was discussed last week as a critical piece of equipment needed, $146,760. Those are the purchases, Mr. Mayor and Council, that you just approved.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. The vote has been taken, so you want to continue with your agenda?
Yes, sir. I've got a few updates. I've got Truth Spring Workforce Program with Carrie Strickland. She is here, and I know that the mayor will want to make comments, Mr. Mayor Pro-Tem, about this organization and what they're doing, and so I'm sure when he returns, he'll have some comments to make. Carrie Strickland.
Good morning. I believe that I have a slideshow maybe that was supposed to come up. Does anyone know if that was? There we go. Okay, great. Thank y'all for having me here this morning. My name is Carrie Strickland. I am part of a nonprofit organization called True Spring, and as you can see on the screen, our mission is to rebuild the North Highland community with Christ-centered projects and strategies. So the mayor invited me to come in and share a new program that we're getting ready to start with you guys. So you can go to the next slide.
You have a clicker.
I have a clicker? This? Okay. Well, okay. There we go. Okay, just 2 quick facts to bring to your attention. North Highland is the average income in this community is about $19,374. Obviously, that's well below the poverty level. And only 1.9% of all churches focus on employment as a means to alleviate poverty. So oftentimes when you're talking about poverty, people think about food, housing, clothing, and that's their primary focus. And no one thinks that maybe we should flip that thinking and put the majority of our work, the majority of our thinking behind how to get people working again. So I'm going to give you a very brief timeline that's going to help bring some context to what we're doing at True Spring. So 2005, my family moved into the North Highland community. So my husband is a pastor, and he became the pastor of a very small church in that community. We learned two things at the very beginning in 2005. One was if we were going to have any chance of being effective in that community, we were going to have to live in the community. This was not in our game plan. We did not think that we really wanted to do this, but we realized that to really be effective there, we were going to have to know the sorrows of the community as well as the joys of the community and be embraced by them. And so in 2005, when my husband became the pastor, we also moved into that community. The second thing that we learned between 2005 and 2009 is we had no idea what we were doing. So we were thrown into community development, to say the least. We had not had any prior education in this, but we were just trying to be obedient to what God was calling us to do. So we moved in, and we did not do anything for 4 years except live in the neighborhood. We were just trying to learn the people and allow the people to learn us, essentially just be embraced by the community. So that's what we did for the first 4 years, is we just learned what it looked like to be a neighbor, talk to your neighbor, be out on the front porch, get to know people, and allow the neighborhood to just accept us little by little. So by 2009, that had happened. The neighborhood started to accept our family. We started seeing a lot of momentum at the church. We knew that we wanted the church to stay focused on the neighborhood. We had no intention of being in a church where people were outside and then drove in. We knew we wanted to really reach out to the people who were right there. So while we were seeing a lot of momentum and the people were really responding to what the church was trying to do, at the same time, the church was still very, very small. And so we were being very overwhelmed by all the needs of the community going on. And so the church decided, in order for them to not sink with underneath all the needs, that they needed to start a nonprofit, that their sole focus would be on developing the community. So that's how these two go together. You have Highland Community Church, who is discipling a community, and you have True Spring, who is developing a community. So that's how we come together, those two whole person objective there. So we started True Spring, and again, we had no idea what we were doing, and so we really just held a lot of community meetings, hot dog events, outdoor movies, just to bring a sense of unity and a sense of community to that neighborhood. It had been severed and broken for so long that there was no sense of oneness anymore. There was no sense of a neighborhood coming together. And so for the first 3 years, we just hosted events just to bring that sense of unity back into that community again. So 2012, we thought, okay, we've done this long enough. We're ready to really do something now in terms of actually trying to develop the community. So by this time, it had been 7 years since we lived there. And what we realized was that we did not have any of the answers, right? But we had learned, our family had learned by that point, to ask right questions. So we held a community meeting, we invited everyone in, and we said, hey, we've started this nonprofit called True Spring. Its purpose is to develop our neighborhood. What do you want True Spring to be about? And so in that meeting, the neighborhood spoke two things. They said, we want you to be about housing, and we want you to be about education. And so I don't have time to go into those two things because that's not our focus today. But out of that meeting, we listened to them and we did exactly what they asked us to do. We developed a housing program for the North Highland community where we buy and renovate houses, and then we find a family who's currently living in that neighborhood and we put them in that home, that better home. And then with True Spring Academy, our byline is that we are the alternative to the alternative school. So if you think about what type of student we receive, you can think about it in that way. We are not in competition with our local public school, which is Fox. We have a great relationship with the principal there. We are simply meant to complement them by taking in some of the weakest students, some of the students that struggle the most, and we focus on them in order to lift up Fox and also save those kids who would most likely fall through the cracks and no one would ever notice. So that's how we come together. So 2018 rolled around. We were celebrating. We had seen so much success with kids. Just to give you an example, we have kids who come in and they score a 0 on their entrance exam, meaning they do not know a letter, they do not know a number, they do not know a shape, 0. And by the end of the year, we're seeing them exit at a 98% exit exam. So we were seeing a lot of success with these students. And so we were in there and we were celebrating in this meeting, and we said, okay, we think that we can take on one more thing as an organization. We have housing, we have education, we can do one more thing. But again, we're coming to you, the community, for you to tell us what you want us to be about. And in that meeting, they said, jobs. We want to work, but we cannot work. And so we just asked another question. We said, okay, well, what's keeping you from work? And these were the things that they listed: no transportation, no childcare, no marketable skills, no prior work experience, no high school diploma, criminal background. So those were some of the things. When we left the meeting that day, I felt really overwhelmed, right? It's different taking a 5-year-old in and shaping a 5-year-old than taking a 35 or 45-year-old and trying to shape them. So we started looking at all these things, and True Spring Board and Highland Community Church started planning, and we started praying. We said, okay, if people want to work, how can we give them the opportunity to work? We know that this is a key part to the revitalization of this community. And so we thought about when this community was thriving, which most of you probably know that we are a mill district. And so when the mills were operating, North Highland was thriving because people had training in the neighborhood and they had work in the neighborhood. So True Spring then said to ourselves, what if we could recreate that? Do we think that we could cause this neighborhood to flourish again if we could bring the training back into the neighborhood and if we could bring the jobs back into the neighborhood? So that's what we did. We just started going after as many people as we could talk to say, this is what we're trying to get together. Do you think we can make this happen? So this is the objective for what we have created. True Spring Workforce objective is this: to give every resident in the North Highland community the opportunity to engage in productive, meaningful work as they rebuild their community with their own hands. And that last part, I'm going to focus on that in just a minute. It's really important to what True Spring does. It's really important to this workforce program, giving people the opportunity to rebuild their own community. So this is what it looks like. We created the True Spring Trade School. Okay, so starting in January, our launch date is going to be January 11th, and I'm just going to walk you real quick through our timeline just so you get a concept of what we're doing over this next year to get people back into the workforce again. So starting in January and going till March, we're going to have on-site 8 weeks of in-classroom training using a curriculum called Jobs for Life. It's soft skill training. It's getting people work-minded again, seeing work as a blessing and not as a curse, getting people in that mindset. The other part of that is that we have developed a partnership with Columbus Tech. You know how we talked about bringing that training back into the neighborhood? Although Columbus Tech is very close to the North Highland community, it might as well be miles away because the comfort level and the ability for people to transition from what is happening in North Highland to a place like Columbus Tech, it just doesn't happen. And so Columbus Tech agreed and said, we agree with that. We will come to you. So during that 8 weeks, they are going to be offering on-site GED prep classes because one of the barriers, right, was no education. No GED, and so we had to deal with that. So that's going to be part of that very first 8 weeks. This is something called a pay-to-learn program. So when you come in and you sit in that classroom that day, we are paying you. We are paying them to better themselves. We are paying them so that they can then better their lives a year from now. They're going to be ready to take on more employment. But for that first year, in order to really equip them, we have to pay them to learn. So this is a pay-to-learn program. Then in March, so if they successfully complete that, if they go through the 8 weeks and they do it and they finish that curriculum, we're going to celebrate. We're going to graduate from that soft skill part. And in March, we transition them into trade training. So we're bringing that training back into the neighborhood. We have 4 trades that we're going to be offering. We have 4 partnerships. One of them is construction and demolition. We've hired a full-time contractor. Culinary Arts with Olivia Amos at the Food Mill Pharmacy, if you've seen that on 2nd Avenue. Urban Gardening, our partnership is with Mercy Med, also on 2nd Avenue. And the fourth one is a partnership with Goodwill, and they will be teaching us janitorial services. So that's our 4 trades. So this will be a paid training program based on a 40-hour work week, just to give you an example of what that looks like and to tie that last point in, and I'm almost finished. So say a student decides to take on the trade of construction and demolition 3 days a week. They're going to be training under a licensed contractor on what that looks like. Well, True Spring has a housing component to it as well. So we are buying homes in the neighborhood, and the people who are part of the trade training program are going to be rebuilding the homes that True Spring is purchasing. So do you see how that comes together? So not only are they getting trained, not only are they learning a marketable skill, not only are they getting work experience and eliminating the educational background all at the same time, but now they're also rebuilding their own community with their own hands. To me, that is a level of empowerment that community development is lacking, right? Community development in its truest sense says, I don't bypass the people who are living here and bring someone else in and then call that community development. Community development is I take the people who are already there and I develop them, and then I give them the opportunity to develop their neighborhood. And so that's what we're doing. And then the other 2 days a week, they'll be back in the classroom again, getting supportive services. So we'll complete our GEDs. We'll do in-depth financial training with them. We'll have family counseling. We'll have a partnership with Right From the Start, and they'll be doing family counseling. We'll have a partnership with Mercy Med. Billy Holbrook is here, and they will be offering wellness classes. So this is a very well-rounded program that we have created. And then in December, we hope that people look like this. We hope that they are jumping up and down, because by then they have overcome the list of barriers that they walked in the door with in January. In December, those barriers are no longer there anymore. So they will be trade trained, and they will be ready to seek out full-time employment within the private sector of Columbus, Georgia at a livable wage for their family. And this is my last slide, and then I'll turn it over for any questions. It says, this is our belief, that we cannot continue to try and solve poverty and unemployment from the outside looking in. If we want to be successful, we are going to have to change our method and start solving the problem from the inside out. That's the philosophy of True Spring. That's what we live, that's what we do, that's what we breathe, and it's working in the North Highland community. I've been there for 15 years now, and it's working. The people are responding. They want better. And this is giving them the opportunity to have that better.
Carrie, thank you. I first had an opportunity to meet, and listen, I was a spectator. I would love to say, it's kind of like one of those big epic games. When it's over, you say, you wish you could say you were there. That's what their initiatives are like, because you want so badly, there's such great initiatives, you want so badly to be able to take credit for part of it, but really it's them. I just watched them do what they were doing. We met them when I was working at Keller Williams Realty.
That's
and
right.
They were building, they were trying to get the school ready, and we were fortunate enough to be able to help them a little bit with that. But this is such an incredible program and such an incredible group. I mean, how many people would have the courage when God is telling you to go provide for others to actually pick up everything they have, pack their family up, and move into the environment that they are going to be distributing that assistance? I mean, it's a full buy-in. And the thing that I'm really impressed with, the mayor's office has gotten very interested in what True Spring is doing, because we have acknowledged the fact, as Carrie alluded to, that you can't solve our big issues, which are poverty, which are education, which are how do we get people, how do we lower recidivism, how do we get folks who are coming out of prison going and get them a job, how do we get nutritious food to people, how do we give them a clean and an attractive environment to live in that they will be proud of, that they will develop that sense of pride in themselves. And what True Spring is doing, what Carrie and Rob are doing, it dovetailed in with what is going on in the city village. Whether it's North Highland or Anderson Village or Bibb City, all of these areas are kind of being pulled into one where they've applied resources. And you have to focus on one area to perfect that template and to start developing some wins so that when you go into other parts of our area, our community that desperately needs the same type of attention, you have a path to follow so that you have a much higher rate of success. And what they're doing with this workforce development thing, I'm so excited for what you guys are doing. And the partners over there, you mentioned Billy Holbrook, Grant Scarborough, Yvette Scarborough at Fox Elementary, Brad Turner, who has gotten behind the City Village Initiative. You mentioned Olivia. There's so many people who are working on that area because it had one of the highest, it still has one of the highest poverty rates in our community, a very diverse community. It's got a school in there if you ever want to get uplifted, if you can't find Carrie, go find Yvette Scarborough and sit and talk to her about what she's doing in Fox Elementary to try to enhance that. Purpose-built communities that helped create and revive the East Lake area in Atlanta. They're working on this, and they focus on a couple of different main pillars. And one is access to medical care and health care, which Mercy Med is solving. The education, which is Fox Elementary, and then they work on affordable housing, which is what Carrie and Rob are doing by not just building the houses, but by building the lives of the people who are going to help shape those houses and transform that area. The city is extremely excited to be partnering with y'all and doing just a little bit to try to help you be successful. There's some other counselors I know I get a little excited about what y'all are doing, getting long-winded. Counselor Garrett.
Carrie, I just wanted to say thank you for all you do for my district and for the city. You and your husband, y'all have had me over a couple times, and it's just remarkable. And you may have said this already before I left to use the restroom, but if you haven't made a year-end donation, this just reminded me seeing her. TrueSpring.org is a great organization to give to. It's really easy. I just did mine, and it's just the most impactful organization I've seen in the North Highland area. I mean, it's been incredible what y'all have done, and I just want to see it spread all over the city.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you.
Counselor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Carrie, I'm so glad you're here today to spend a little time with the council and just to share and let us all get familiar with what you guys are doing, you and your husband, your family. It's really a family effort and what you're doing in the North Highland effort. Mayor, I want to thank you for taking the time to articulate, and you did it well, the vision and the mission of what they do. It's just so many things, but I want to share this. Carrie and her husband, and they're kind of my Starbucks buddies.
That's right.
Even though we haven't been able to see each other a lot lately, but I can see sometimes. Sometimes you just sit and watch people from a distance, and it says a lot. And you know, it's not easy sometimes when you're totally committed to giving back. It's not an easy road to take sometimes, but you can tell when people are committed and they are in 100% in what they do. And I can't thank you enough for what y'all have done. And you don't ask for anything. You do it quietly. Your actions speak louder than your words. But I'm glad you're here today because people need to know what your family, the connections, how you're making a difference in the lives of so many people, and you are. And sometimes we're just passing through, but to know that, I just pray God's richest blessings upon you and your family and the continuing success of all you're doing there. I know it's tough sometimes, but you know, you guys are committed, and I'm so thankful for people like that in our community. So thanks for being here today and just spend a little time and let everybody get to know you. I hope the council reaches out to you and gets to know you and your family and your children, and maybe they'll ask more questions about what all you do. It's phenomenal, but thank you.
Thank you.
There's so many people like that in our community, and a lot of times it kind of goes unnoticed, but sometimes you're making the biggest difference when you do that work.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you, there are changes happening. I was remiss in not pointing out that NeighborWorks is doing a couple dozen houses out there that they're transforming there along 4th and 5th. There's just been a senior housing component that just opened on the old Meredith Mills site. So right next to that school where they used to have that dilapidated, horrible place for these kids to have to go by every day, now they've got a brand new 140, I think, unit.
That's right.
145 available, and it's for 55 and up, and there's plans right behind it for a mirroring project without that age limitation. All affordable housing. It's just really a lot going on. Councilor Allen, or Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say, Carrie, how proud I am of you and your efforts in this area. Giving away my age right now, but my parents grew up in the North Highland area. My grandparents worked at the mills, so I'm basically a product of that area. So I'm proud to see this revitalization, and I would be, I'd like to join in helping you in any way I can. So if you see a need where I can fit in, I'd love to work with you and those that are out there. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it. Councilor Thomas?
Carrie, Mayor Pro Tem Allen is not the only product of North Highland on this council. My grandmother worked at the Swift Mill, and they lived over on 36th Street, and there are a lot of people in Columbus who grew up in those neighborhoods and worked in those mills. And I think, like Mayor Pro Tem Allen, would be more than glad to help out however you need us. So don't hide your candle under a bushel. Pull it out and let us know how to get to you. I think Councilor Garrett gave us a website. If you would give it again, I think you may find some folks that would be more than willing to help to contribute financial assistance, but there are also a lot of people that would come over and do whatever needs to be done there. So don't hesitate to call us. Tell us that website again where we can donate.
Right, it's truthspring.org, truthspring.org. And that was how we initially got the workforce program rolling. Was I found out that Mr. Yancey was connected to that community. I don't know Mr. Yancey, but I went and said, could you meet with me? And he said yes, and that's what I said to him. I said, I know your roots come back to this community, and therefore, when Scripture says they will rebuild the ancient ruins, you're part of that they. And he took it, and he was one of our very first committed supporters of the program. So that's what we're looking for. So many people connect back to that community, and we have the responsibility to offer some rebuilding. So.
We call on Jimmy Yancey again and tell him you need some more money.
Okay.
Well, be careful now, because Jimmy came and met with the city. We need.
Yeah. Well, and Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
The mayor heard the story, saw this project, and talked to Carrie Strickland and others, to include Jimmy Yancey, and he was talking to me, and he was so excited about the program. He says, "You got to hear about this program. You just got to hear it." And the mayor says, "I'd like to figure out how we can partner and help fund what they're doing." And so I did get to hear Carrie share the program, and Jimmy Yancey was a part of that presentation where she shared the program, and it was just so exciting. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, and as I'm talking, Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge is not here, but she just texted me, "This program is so exciting," because it is. But we heard about all the details about the program, and then we started to try and figure out how we can help fund it through CDBG. And we're of course in the middle of a CDBG year, and their program is not waiting, it's moving, it's active. And so then we started looking at what funding source could we possibly look at to try and help get them through this year. And we would like to come back to you in January, and we want to consider the Economic Development Fund as a potential funding source, but going forward, if we're not in the middle of a CDBG year, CDBG would be an excellent funding source to support this program. That's what community development block grant money is about, and you just don't find a program better than this anywhere. And I just heard Councilor Walker Garrett say that this is, and I'm going to use a quote because I wrote it down, Councilor Garrett, you said, this is the most impactful organization I have seen, and I want it spread all over the city. That's your quote a few minutes ago. And I can tell you, I wrote that down because when we heard this, the mayor and I were talking, we said, we need this to go all over the city. It's what the mayor and I talked about. And it's ironic that Councilor Garrett would use those same words. But it is an awesome, awesome program. And you just, I mean, so it needs to be all over the city. I'm almost speechless, but Mayor and Council, I do want to say that this is the kind of thing that CDBG ought to be funding. And we do want it to come back as part of a recommendation for CDBG funding when we go back through the budget cycle. But in the meantime, they need help now. And you've heard Jimmy Yancey and how he's supporting it and others. But I know the mayor wanted to partner and support it as well. And I was charged with trying to identify how we could do that. And so, Mayor, in January, we would like to bring something back to some options for how we can support this awesome program.
It's an amazing program. Councilor Woodson?
Thank you very much for seeing the vision that God gave you and fulfilling it. That's very important. I believe in that very strongly, that God gives us visions, and we're all chosen to do something to take care of his children. But I too, like Isaiah say it so eloquently, and I can't repeat him, but I agree when I heard Councilor Garrett say this should be all over the city. That's the first thing I wrote, all over the city. I've been here in Columbus on and off since '85 and been in this position since '95, and I can tell you, I've seen lots of good programs, but never like this. And this is an amazing program. And I had my light on to ask, how can we help fund it? And then the city manager said it all. So just to say is that God gave you a mission, and he's opening the doors for you, and you are blessing others, that others will bless others. And thank you for that great work of God, because really the credit goes to him with the vision of using you. And the mayors have said it so often, how can we help our community with poverty? Well, maybe, Mayor, maybe this is our blessing from God. You know, maybe he's chosen this program to show us this is how you rebuild in poverty. So thank you for having the vision to bring Miss Carrie, or Isaiah, whoever had the vision to bring her, because this is good news in a time when we have a pandemic, and a time when people are losing their jobs, when you're losing loved ones, when you feel hopeless. You just brought joy. What Christmas is about. You just brought joy because you can see a light into the future. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, and I thank you, Mr. City Manager, because we have told True Springs that we are going to bring to this council request for an amount to help us partner with them during this first session. And you have, how many people do you have already interested in joining that?
We had 20 slots and we had over 50 people apply to get into the program. We can only pay 20, so we kept 20, but people want to work and we're really wanting to be part of this.
And Mr. Yancey said something that resonated with me, because we have, unfortunately, these perceptions that are so far from reality and truth. And he was mentioning that, the assumption sometimes in areas of high poverty is that people don't want to work. They're watching the mailbox waiting on a check. So when Carrie and Rob went out and they were doing their canvassing to try to ask them, what do you need? The number one answer, one of the top answers was?
Work. We want to work.
They want to work. So now they've got 20 slots, and now they got, 50 people trying to get in there. So this is just, it's an awesome program, and we thank you. This is how you help provide an opportunity, in my opinion, for a community to overcome poverty. Because it has to be, as you pointed out, from the inside out. It has to start with the individuals. They have to buy into the fact that they can improve their lives and they can take control of their lives. And then you have to have people who are going to help them marry up with the necessary resources to be successful. You can't just tell somebody, we're going to teach you a skill, because they have to have a bridge to get to that graduation date or they can't eat.
That's right.
So the pay for educating them, I think, is spot on, and you're getting a return on that, because they're going to help you continue to rebuild the community. So
that's right.
I know it's been a long presentation, but it was worth hearing. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
And Carrie, can you, that last slide, and the mayor just quoted it, gave the quote, but the last slide that you showed, can we see that again? That last slide,
Is that on me to bring it up through this, or is that on someone else?
And the mayor said it so well, but it's
I don't know who popped it up first.
great quote, but if you can't, that's
they
fine.
will, okay.
Yeah. But I just thought it was an excellent quote, and the mayor summarized it just a second ago. But Carrie, thank you so much. The last slide was just and there, Mayor, you said it so well. We cannot continue to try and solve poverty and unemployment from the outside looking in. If we want to be successful, we're going to have to change our method and start solving the problem from the inside out. Awesome quote. Thank you for
Thank you
coming.
all.
Mayor, next I've got the audit process with our finance director, Angelica Alexander, and then she'll close it out with the monthly finance update.
Good morning, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'll try to keep this presentation obviously as brief as possible. So the city manager wanted to just provide a very brief update on the audit process for the Columbus Consolidated Government. And so the annual external audit objective is obviously to, the objective of the external audit is to obtain reasonable assurance. And we say reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance, because nothing is perfect. Even throughout the audit process, there is a level of materiality, and it has to meet, that materiality threshold before it's presented as being an issue. But reasonable assurance as to whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement caused by error or fraud. And so the role of the external auditor is to provide independent assurance that management has, in its presentation of its financial statements, presented a true and fair view of the organization's financial position as well as its performance. So per OCGA 36-81-7, an annual audit of the financial statements for local government units is required. And so our local government unit consists of the city, as well as the following component units, which are the Trade Center Authority, the Columbus Golf Authority, the Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Hospital Authority of Columbus, Columbus Waterworks, the Columbus Airport Commission, as well as the Columbus Health Department. So also within that same state statute, we are required to submit an annual report to the state auditor within 180 days after the close of each fiscal year. Failure to do so requires the local government to publish 2 newspaper advertisements stating that it has failed to comply with submitting the audit report to the state. And it's also codified in this same statute that no state agency shall make or transmit any state grant funds to any local government which has failed to provide all audits required by law within the preceding 5 years. So in terms of audit reporting requirements, the state auditor may grant a hardship extension by allowing additional time to submit the audit report to them for a period not to exceed 180 days. And by executive order that was, by the governor's executive order due to the COVID-19 pandemic, an automatic 90-day extension has been granted from the state auditor. So in regards to our audit being submitted to the state, we do have a 90-day extension, which puts us to the end of March in terms of us providing that information, that report to the state. But this extension does not apply to other state or federal agencies. And also continuing disclosure requirements related to all outstanding debt still must be adhered to. So in regards to the continuing disclosure requirements, we have for every outstanding bond that we have as well as all the component units of the city, there is a continuing disclosure agreement that is signed off on, and it requires us to post our comprehensive annual financial report, or our CAFR, online within 6 months at the end of each fiscal year. And so timely submissions of event disclosures to this EMA website where we post this information is critical for overall transparency of municipal securities in general. And these disclosures also alert investors and other market participants such as bond rating agencies to just important information that may or may not have an impact on their assessment of any municipal bonds or the issuer of any municipal bonds. And so potential non-compliance issues, component units are required. This was a resolution that was passed by council at the recommendation of our external auditors last year. But component units are required to submit their audited financial statements to the city no later than November 30th to be included in the CAFR, which again is our comprehensive annual financial report. As you may all recall, at the last meeting, the airport was here to provide information to council because they did not meet that deadline at that particular time. And so they have to come before this council and really sort of explain why they did not meet that November 30th deadline. But the city and each component unit must file an event disclosure for failure to provide annual financial information if the CAFR is not posted timely to the EMA website. Event disclosures must be reported for the next several years, and any new official statements issued for any new bonded debt. There's talks of a SPLOS and issuing bonds as part of the SPLOS, and if we have to file an event disclosure, obviously that information will have to be disclosed in that official statement for any bonds issued as part of the SPLOS. Also, event disclosures could adversely impact the credit standing of the city with bond rating agencies, which would ultimately lead to issuance of bonds with a higher interest rate. So if we have to pay more in terms of in interest to our bondholders, obviously that's just less proceeds that we have for any projects. And that, in a nutshell, is the update, and I will be happy to answer any questions from council if there are any.
Councilor Crabb?
Thank you. Has the airport turned in their report now?
I do not have it as of yet, but I do understand there has been some discussion with the executive management, the city manager, the mayor, in terms of us receiving that report sometime this week.
Okay.
Should be in tomorrow. I spoke with I actually spoke with one of the members of the commission last week and spoke with the airport director yesterday, and I was assured it would be in by tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So moving on to the next update, which is just our monthly finance update. If you have the snapshot in front of you, we'll just start to the right of the snapshot there with the general fund. The general fund is currently up 5.39% when compared to November of 2019. The other local option sales tax fund is up 28.93%. As you may recall, we did receive that big influx of audit funds from the Georgia Department of Revenue back in September. And had we not received that, we still would be up about 3% in the other local option sales tax fund when compared to last year. The stormwater sewer fund is up 1.40%. The paving fund is up 8.27%. And that significant increase, although that fund is tax supported, but the significant increase is due to disaster reimbursement payments that were received this year that we didn't have last year. So that is the reason for that significant increase. The medical center fund is up 1.52%. The integrated waste fund is down 2.86%. And that is partially due to the billing method change for the commercial billing of solid waste collection. We went to a month-to-month basis as opposed to all of that money being collected up front at the very beginning of the fiscal year. The emergency telephone fund is down 7.07%, and that is attributed to the cancellation of a contract with Chattahoochee County. For many years, actually I believe since like the early 90s, we were in contract with Chattahoochee County where we would serve as their answering point. So if you dial 911 in Chattahoochee County, you actually receive someone in Muskogee County to dispatch that call. And as of April 1st, 2020, they canceled that contract, so we're no longer receiving their E911 fees in relation to that. The Economic Development Authority Fund is up 1.52%. The Debt Service Fund is down 87.30%, and that's largely due to the bond refinancing that took place last year. I don't know if you recall me saying last year, it was really up last year, and so this year it's just the opposite, but that's solely due to the bond refinancing that we had in 2019. The Transportation Fund is up 0.06%. The Trade Center Fund is down 30.32%, and obviously they are impacted by COVID-19 in terms of being able to generate any substantial event-based revenue. And there's also a decline in hotel-motel taxes. Hotel-motel taxes is down about 35% right now when compared to last year. But that is actually better than what we initially projected in terms of the budget. We anticipated that it'd be down about 50%. So 35% is better than 50, but so hopefully we'll experience, that rebound that the industry experts were projecting in January. Fingers crossed on that. Bull Creek Golf Course Fund is up 24.55%. Oxbow Creek Golf Course Fund up 68.17%. And the Civic Center Fund is down 78.12%. And again, definitely impacted by COVID-19 in terms of producing event-based revenues. And although the revenues are down, the expenditures are down as well for the fund at about 45% of expenses when compared to 2019. So moving down the snapshot to the other local option sales tax fund, For the public safety side, total revenues collected year-to-date is about 11.6 million. Expenditures year-to-date is about 10.6 million. For the other local option sales tax infrastructure fund, we've recorded about 4.9 million in revenues, and we have about 2.3 million in expenditures. Moving over to the left side of the snapshot, where you see the general fund expenditures by department, the goal at this particular point in the fiscal year is to be at 58% or greater. Those departments that are less than that goal are highlighted here in yellow. Starting with the city attorney's office, of course, we're defending, several million in claims. For information technology, there were some annual software lease and maintenance agreements that were made at the very beginning of the fiscal year, as well as a lot of technological improvement purchases made in regards to COVID-19. I do anticipate that will come off the watch list once we prepare and submit to council the mid-year budget amendment. Also, the employee benefits area is denoted here, but that's just due to our annual death benefit and major disability payments. That is a one-time annual payment. I do not anticipate that to go over budget at year end. And so the last department here on the watch list is our elections department. There are some expenditures for the elections department that will be redistributed, reallocated to some of the grants that elections received, and so we're still working through that process at this particular time. I'm not concerned, but they are on the watch list. And so, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Mayor, that is the finance update, and I will be happy to answer any questions from anyone at this time.
Mayor Pro-Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding the grants that were received from the elections office, I understand we have procedures in place regarding bonuses and that kind of thing. My understanding also is the staff regarding the elections office was put in certain situations with the elections process, COVID, et cetera, et cetera. I know one of the board members contracted COVID, so they were, in my opinion, frontline workers and are deserving of some type of extra compensation. So have we talked about that any further? Have you, where are we with that? I guess since you brought it up, I wanted to kind of piggyback on your comments.
Well,
I'll
be happy to respond. We resolved the concern that we had with full-time employees who did receive the $650 bonus authorized by the mayor and council. And I did have Deputy City Manager Hodge to do a complete review of the grants and what transpired. She is not here today, and we'll be happy to have further discussion on it, that you will know exactly what transpired and what concerns we had and continue to have. I believe we've resolved that matter, and we've had very lengthy discussions regarding grants. And we've got a lot of grants in this government, and just most recently, we've received a lot of grants as a result of COVID. So I'd love to have, if you want to, further discussion on grants as we move forward, because I think we got to be consistent in what we do for one organization related to grants, we ought to do for all. And certainly elections people put themselves in awkward positions, but no more so than the Metro bus drivers and and they did receive $6.7 million in grants as it relates to COVID. But they got the 650 bonus. And workforce investment got over $2 million in COVID dollars, and the list goes on. And so, you know, if we compensate our employees fairly, we pay them overtime when they work. The only bonuses above and beyond what's authorized, the 650, would have to be reauthorized by this council. And if we want to look at every COVID grant that came in and what we can pay those employees that receive COVID grants, I'm happy to do that, but we need to be consistent across the board.
I guess I'm thinking of it in the vein of these are election of workers that occurs every 2 years. In that year, it's at least twice, a spring election and a fall election. We haven't had the opportunity to have this type of grant before, so this is the first time we've experienced this. This grant does include hazard pay. I'm not sure if the other grants you mentioned do include hazard pay, but if we don't utilize the funds, they have to be turned back in by the end of the year. So that's why I was trying to bring it up to see if we could work out something in this particular situation. So do you know offhand if the other grants include hazard pay?
Well, I don't know specifically about Metro, but I can tell you that with workforce investment, they've got money that they can spread about if we want to do that.
To all areas, other employee?
Pardon?
Is it for all the government?
Yes, it's 100% money.
Okay.
And in fact, there's no limit on what we can pay those people. And I just want to make sure that we are treating all equally or fairly. But I can check to see if the 6.7 million allows for hazard pay. And there were some significant numbers that came forward to pay people hazard pay. I'm saying, you know, we had people that were trying to pay hazard pay $6,800.
Yeah, that was concerning to me when I heard the amounts, but I would like for us to consider something. So
yeah, so we'll be happy to take a look.
Well, and I think it makes good sense for the part-time workers, the folks that work the polls and aren't full-time employees. My view of that, and I saw the amounts that were going to some of the employees, and it just didn't seem like it was a levelized playing field for everybody. I mean, but those that were working part-time and hired specifically for that, for them to be out there at those polls, I think, you know, a small something makes more sense than giving it to the
Well, and I think they did receive it, Mayor, because we didn't have, because the 650 did not go to part-time employees. It went to full-time employees. So for those who were part-time that they allocated bonuses to was not an issue. Okay. It was for our full-time employees who had received the 650. But I'm happy to take a look and across the board for grant. I was about to pull up that, you know, but I was really impressed with the number of grants that we received related to COVID. Our staff did an excellent job with COVID dollars. And just to pull it up right quick, you know, we got 10.2 million from the state for CARES Act dollars. Metro received 6.9 million, CDBG 2.1 million, Columbus Airport 1.2 million, CCG Public Safety JAG grant 339,000, assistance to firefighter grant 170,000, workforce investment dislocated workers grant 460,000, River Valley Regional Commission got $1 million, and you know, the list goes on. And so there was a lot of money flowing through here as a result of COVID grants. And but I'm happy to take a look at whatever you want me to. in that regard.
Do you know if the permanent part-time employees received hazard pay?
They did not.
No.
They did not.
They did not.
Yeah, just, it was the full-time employees. And they didn't because, as our HR director explained, employees who were part-time and not working, they were getting unemployment and the additional $600. And so actually they were making more money not working than they would have if they had worked.
Well, that's where I was trying to distinguish between the elections workers and the permanent part-time city employees. These folks only come in every other year.
Yeah.
And they were, obviously, we understand the election process and how they work, but they're only here that period of time. And that's why I was thinking this was a little more unique situation that we could look at.
Yeah, and I believe they received the bonus, and we didn't touch that. Those employees that you just named, it was the full-time employees.
Part-timers did?
I think so.
It was the full-time employees that were concerning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but we can still take a look at that over the weekend, just make certain.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Councilor Davis?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Manager, I just wanted to add to those comments. I know last week I wanted to bring some of this up, but we were discussing so many things. First of all, I want to thank all those involved in being able to provide early voting to the north end of town, making it more convenient. I know that we had some struggles with the health department. There's some renovations, remodeling, and things like that going on there, but thank you so much to all who's been involved in trying to identify and find a new location so our whole community has easy access to voting. This has been a very, very, we all know, I mean, it's just been a extraordinary year, and you know, I don't know if we'll ever see one like it again, but certainly when it comes to elections, I mean, there's stuff going on that we've never ever seen in our lifetime before and anticipated, and we're dealing with it and we're working through it, but it comes with a heavy cost. It comes with a lot of labor hours. It comes with a lot of work, a lot of effort, just all these requests and lawsuits, things that are happening. At the end of the day, it's going to cost a lot of money to take care of all this stuff. And in saying that, Ms. City Manager, I really appreciate the standpoint of the management matters. I agree with you 100%. And certainly I respect the matter of consistency. And I know as long as I've been working with you, you've always held that ground. So I do appreciate that. I personally am kind of looking at this as a, you know, something that's kind of, well, let's just say it seems different than a lot of other things. There's a lot of, I don't even know if you want to call it grants, but funds that are floating around out there, whether it's through government agencies, whether it's through private entities, businesses, just people getting involved, putting a lot of support out there, financial support out there, and it's really, I hate to say it like this, but it's really you just take it or you don't get it at all. I think we have an opportunity here to do some things in our city and to cover some of our cost. I'd like to see that happen because it's my understanding that if you don't use it, you've just got to send it right back to where it came from. And if it's costing us, then and it's I guess a legitimate request, or it's in the framework of what this funding supports, then I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do it. And I too agree with the part about the labor. We've seen the long lines. I mean, some of us have stood in the lines, and we've seen a lot of the extra work that's going on here, and we'll continue all the way in to January and possibly even further. So a lot of these employees or people that now that we're having to go out and ask for assistance to help, you know, if we need to, you know, value that and, you know, and certainly compensate them for their time and there's funds to be able to do it, then I'm in 100% support of it. I'd like to encourage you, Ms. City Manager, Mayor, that we do that we utilize these funds. And whatever council can do, I'm in full support. If we need to, Ms. City Manager, cover you from a management standpoint and make that decision, I don't have a problem doing that. But I would really love us to look to look at that and to be able to utilize those funds, because if we don't, it's going to have to come from somewhere.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I'm not looking for cover.
Okay.
You know, I'm looking to do the right thing.
Exactly.
In all cases, and be consistent in how we treat our people, and I stand on that. Where I see you know, treatment for one group or person or persons that is not for others, I have a problem with it, and I will speak out about it. That's just where I am. And so, but just poll workers work the polls, and they are face-to-face with people. The employees, I don't believe, work the polls. And when a poll worker gets $175 and you're trying to pay a full-time employee a bonus of $6,800, that's a problem for me. Because the poll workers is where the boots, you know, on ground and face-to-face. And that is a huge discrepancy. And then when you deal with employees, I mean, we just dealt with grant employees who could, the sky was the limit in what they could pay themselves. And it wasn't right. I called it out. We have to have policy. We have to be consistent, and we have to treat people in an equal fashion. And that's what I aim to do as long as I am city manager.
Well, Mr. City Manager, I appreciate that, as I said earlier. And you just whatever we need to do to help out, I'm in full support of whether it's the department decisions or how that's being done, that we utilize those funds in the most valued, appropriate manner.
And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilor Thomas.
Mr. City Manager, without any further information than what you've given us today, one of the things I would like for you to take a look at and bring back to us, some of these grants that we receive are specifically because of COVID and the hazardous duty and those kinds of things. And I think we need to take a real good look at how do we distribute the money, if there is money in the grant, to those people who fit that bill, who did the hazardous duty. And it seems to me that that's different from some of the other grants that we get that are more routine kinds of things. Does that make sense? They're grants that we've been getting for 10 years, and it's not specifically for the hazardous duty that our employees are doing. I would not want us to return money to whomever that was sent to us specifically for COVID-related hazardous duty. So I'd just like for you to take a look at that. And as I said, I don't have all of the information, so I may be completely on the wrong track. But I know, for example, in some of the grants that we talked about recently when we redid the HR program, those are grants that come every year. Every grant has that in it. And it's not because of an unusual situation like the COVID is. So let's take a look at that and see if there's something that we need to make sure that we give to those employees who are performing the hazardous duty, whatever that may be, and however that grant may define
I
hazardous duty.
certainly will, and we'll take a look at the Metro grants and all of them, because our bus drivers put themselves in a very, very dangerous position with people on and off the bus all day. And in fact, we had such a serious problem at one time, we had to go from a weekday schedule to a Saturday schedule on a weekday because of their close contact with customers. And so, I mean, throughout the government, our people have really done
Absolutely.
really well.
And I think maybe the bus drivers is a good example. Metro gets grants every year.
Yes.
And they're used for various and sundry things. But if Metro has gotten a grant for COVID-related hazardous duty pay for our employees, I want us to take another look at that.
Yeah.
And make sure that we're doing what
right
needs to be done for our employees.
And I can tell you, if the deputy city manager was here today, I could, but I wouldn't have her do the presentation where we've investigated those dollars. But I have it, and I'm happy to share it with you and the public.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all. Mr. City Manager, do you have? Councilor, wait a minute. Councilor Davis?
No, that concludes my agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to wait to the end. Mr. City Manager, I'd like to kind of maybe challenge the staff, or maybe just to maybe explore possibilities here. And I think as we've gone through time, just looking at some of these requests as it relates to redevelopment powers and the TADs that we've discussed, you know, there's been a lot of focus around just tying areas up for amounts of time. Maybe there's a better way to go about this, and I'm just exploring this out loud. There may be if staff goes through and looks at the whole county, and we look at areas that are ripe for redevelopment, or areas that need help and assistance that is basically defined as the Redevelopment Act, and it meets all those criteria, that maybe we can go ahead and identify these areas and just put them in what we would call areas of redevelopment or redevelopment. We could come up with a name and present them to council so that we look at all these areas and that we can say, yeah, these are areas that we want to focus on in our community. We've got so many areas that offer so many opportunities when it comes to economic development. You know, there's a lot out there. But if we did that, and then somehow the council would agree that we can take all our tools, including TADs, etc., for these areas to help and assist, that when we do get a project, that when we do get something worthwhile to look at, we've already said that we would utilize those tools in those areas. And that way we don't really tie up the operating funds or the general funds of the government, or we miss out on something that might be a little bit described as premature in efforts of development. You know, I'm just thinking out loud here, but maybe the staff can explore ways to maybe kind of deal with this from a different angle, that we'll all be on the same page when it comes to what we're looking at doing in our community. Because right now it just kind of gives the impression it's kind of first come, first serve until you use up all your available land out there. And I don't think that's right, because one day you may miss out on the really, really what I would call a big fish, and you've already expanded or you've used up all your firepower to assist in economic development. So I've been really thinking about it lately since we've been talking about this stuff, and maybe that's a better way to approach this versus first come, first serve. And I don't mean that in a derogatory manner, but I think you kind of understand that's kind of the path we're going. Maybe there's a better way to do it. I just throw that out there as food for thought.
All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager, anything else?
No, that's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. For the clerk's agenda, the first item is a resolution changing the meeting schedule for January by canceling the January 5th proclamation session and in lieu of hold a regular council meeting on January 5th, 2021 at 9:00 a.m. and to cancel the January 12th regular council meeting.
Motion approved from Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Second from Councilor Woodson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. And any opposed, no? Okay, that's passed.
Item 2 is the finance report resolution concerning certain alcohol beverage license process during the month of November 2020.
Motion to approve from the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Second from Councilor House. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed, no. Okay, it passes.
Item 3 are minutes of various boards to be received.
Motion that the minutes be received by the Mayor Pro Tem. Second from Councilor House. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. They are received.
Next, we have board appointments. We have the mayor's appointments. We have listed the Pension Fund Employees Board of Trustees, the seat of Liliana McDaniel. This is a business community representative.
I'll get you a nominee for the first of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next, we have council district seat appointments. Any nominations may be confirmed for this meeting. We have the Charter Review Commission. We have the seats for District 2 as well as District 3. Councilor Huff is nominating Vivian Creighton Bishop.
All right, there's a motion to confirm.
Is that
and
the
second
list
from
of
Councilor Garrett. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, Mr. Russell and Ms. Bishop are confirmed.
Thank you. For the Community Development Advisory Council, the seat of Valerie Thompson, Councilor Tucker is nominating Tracy Belt, and she may be confirmed.
Move confirmation from Councilor Woodson, second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed, no. She's confirmed.
Next, for the Recreation Advisory Board, Councilor Tucker is nominating Rodney Lawrence to succeed Mr. Willie Dickerson as her representative.
There's a motion approved from Councilor Huff, second from the Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, no. Confirmed.
And we also need a nomination for the District 6 seat.
You don't know him.
Next, we have council appointments. Any nominations will be listed for the next meeting. The Cooperative Extension Advisory Board, the clerk's office is accepting nominees for the seat of Brenda Foreman. She is not interested in serving another term of office. This is council's appointment. The Historic and Architectural Review Board, Libby Smith is interested in serving another term. She's serving in the Historic District resident seat, if a member of council wanted to renominate her. Councilor Woodson has made that nomination. We also have the seat of Leslie Hurd Jones. This is a Historic District resident, as well as Robert Anderson. This is the Liberty Cultural Center, Inc. representative. Both are not eligible to serve another term. Therefore, we are accepting nominees for these two seats. Next, we have the Tree Board, the seat of Frank Tomey. This is the Residential Development member, as well as Troy Keller. This is the Educator member, and Beverly Kenner, the at-large member. All are not eligible to serve another term of office, and we are accepting nominees for these three positions. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, let me say on behalf of the entire council and all the staff, to the citizens of Columbus, we wish you very Merry Christmas. And for those of you whose tradition is not to celebrate Christmas, we wish you happy holidays. And our prayers are with you for a safe holiday season. Reminder to mask up. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, we've got Councilor Huff.
If you would, get someone to get in contact with Pacelli for the new year. The football team went to the playoffs this year and would like to honor them in the new year for that.
Should probably honor Calvary Christian as well. They won the state title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll get that taken care of. All right.
Thank you.
We did have a motion from Councilor Woodson, I think. Was there a second? Second from Mayor Pro-Tem. All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? No. We are adjourned. Merry Christmas, everybody.